Brian, can you hear me?
Okay,
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us, Tom?
Wait, for
He's muted.
now he's.
Now you're muted, Tom.
real rock?
Good.
Okay, I have to push the button to speak every time.
Okay,
She left.
yeah, we're getting ready to get started, so.
Okay.
Good. Oh, hell, just bring her in.
Listen.
Yes, please.
I'll be right back.
Okay, go right. We'll wait.
Down the back row.
Yes, sir.
Third row. Right there.
Are we gonna have assistants to help carry that budget to our cars or what? Michael.
I'll do it.
Oh, thank you. I was looking, that's bigger than last year. I didn't know they made notebooks that big.
It's about the size.
Oh, it's.
Okay, well, I'm watching. It'll pop up on
I didn't know
the.
my notebook that thick.
No.
You know what, Congress,
Oh, gosh.
Oh.
especially when they're mad about something, they come in carrying one. What's she doing?
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Is everything live now? Everything's good?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just making sure. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And first item of business, I do want to recognize Shelley Caraway, our planning director.
Okay.
It'd be a new job for her. And now you're the health director.
Yeah, here.
I'm keeping my job. Anyway, we want to recognize Shelley. I know she's sort of the health department, sort of the anchor group for this building. It's been their facility for decades. Now they have some friends that have moved in to join them, but this is really our first time in official capacity having been here. And it's a great opportunity to be here and to be a part of this facility and to be able to have our meeting here today. So I just wanted to give an opportunity to Shelley to say a few words as an opening, a welcome, and then I think she also wants to say a few words about Melissa.
Yes, I did just want to have this opportunity since I get to see you here in our new building. Thanks to you. Thanks for your patience, your support. Thanks even when we were in the other building. And so thank you so very much for sticking with us on this project. And it was crazy, but we're here now and look at what we have. So I wanted to also extend the invitation after your meeting is over. If you would like a tour, I think you need to see it all. We've even blocked off appointments in the clinic so that we can go into the clinic. And it's an amazing thing to see. So I'm so tickled that you're here sharing our joy, and we are over the moon to be here. There have been a few hiccups, but so few for having such a huge project. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Then on a sad note, I know you all know this by now, but Melissa Mcknight, our deputy health director, is being snatched away by her husband who got another job in another state. And so her last day will be May 21st. And we honestly couldn't have gotten through all of this without her. And we were talking about this at the Board of Health meeting the other night is you wouldn't know today that she's even leaving. She's still full force in. Some people put their feet up on the desk and chew gum and wait it out, but not Melissa. And I think she is just a gem and we will miss her tremendously. So I wanted you to say goodbye.
I just want to say it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to work for Jackson County for the past 9 years. And it's hard to believe that this won't be my home in just a few short weeks. So I truly thank you for the opportunity to work here, to serve this community. And I just can't believe it. So I feel like I'm leaving with the community in a relatively good spot COVID wise, which I'm thankful for. And I know we have a great agency here and a great community and good partners. So I look forward to seeing all the good that will come from here. And thank you so much.
Well, we would not be where we're at today if it hadn't been for your hard work.
Thank you.
You are a strong, strong part of this team. Very much appreciate.
And a little fun note on the end is, because when I grow up, I want to be like Melissa. And so I bought her house. I thought maybe if I live in her house, it'll come off on me. So anyway, but thank you. Enjoy. Like I said, after you're done, let me know and we'll take a tour.
Vanessa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just read, thank you, and stay.
Oh, she could commute, couldn't she, to Alabama?
Too far. Thank you.
Yes.
I'll make her cry.
Yeah. I gotta go.
She's got to go.
Appreciate all you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Mr. Adams.
Yes, sir. The first item of discussion, we have Mr. Poston here, our planning director. And we do also have, I believe, someone on Zoom here to present a request in regards to the Blue Ridge Public Radio, requesting the fee waiver.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to come in this afternoon and speak with you. We received a request from Blue Ridge Public Radio. They are working with the Airport Authority and Ms. Baker in looking at placing a antenna on an existing tower at the airport. They already have leased previously a space for one of their other frequencies, but they are also acquiring 90.5 from Western Carolina University and incorporating that into their holdings. And they come to you today asking to waive the $1,000 co-location fee for that antenna on the airport property. They would still be responsible for gaining all necessary permits from the planning department and continuing to work with the airport authority to finalize all lease agreements. So this isn't asking for any regulatory framework to be withdrawn. This is simply just a fee waiver request that I bring before the board this afternoon. And Mr. Reed is joining us by Zoom, and I'll let him add anything that I might have missed. Jason?
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So my position at the radio station, so everyone knows, I'm the director of technology. And one thing that you didn't mention, it's worth mentioning, we would be broadcasting BPR News, our second service to Jackson County. So we'd be adding a brand new service to the community by adding this antenna to this transmission site. But I think other than that, it was covered pretty well by Michael.
And certainly, I'll have to answer any questions that the board may have.
Yeah, and I'll say, I think we've done this once before.
We have.
So it's something that we've got a precedent. We've done it before with BPR, public radio. And so I personally don't see it being a problem and fully support it. And I fully support Blue Ridge Public Radio. 98.3 is, in fact, I was listening to it on my way to this meeting. I'm a constant listener. So.
We appreciate that. So being a nonprofit too, it would help us for sure to have the fee waived. So.
Any other questions or comments from board members? This will be on our next agenda for voting.
The airport authority is fully behind it.
Okay, thank you. Jones?
Well, and I would just like to mention, this doesn't have anything to do with the antenna, but I have appreciated, Mr. Reed, BPR's expanding coverage to local communities, and Lily Knapp and doing series on the 7 Western counties has been really helpful for our community and news. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Lily's been a great addition to our team, and we look forward to expanding even further. So.
Tom, do you have any questions? I'll make sure.
No, I'm for it.
Okay, very good. Any other thoughts or comments from anyone?
Mr. Chairman, if I may really quickly introduce our new employee to the planning department. And if you want to come, this is Anna Harkins. Anna comes to us, started yesterday. So we're getting her into the meeting schedule right away, bringing her here today. She's a recent graduate with her master's in community planning and bachelor's in historic preservation from the College of Charleston. So she's working with us and she'll be taking over a lot of the duties that Caroline was performing and going to be staffed to the Historic Preservation Board and Housing Committee. So I just wanted to introduce her to you all. And thank you very much for your time today.
Can we ask her a few questions?
Yes, sir.
No, thank you.
Don't have to
Recommend.
answer if you.
Thank you all very much.
All right, thank y'all.
Mike, email Jason, just tell him we have the agenda. Is that okay?
Working?
We pronounce that better.
Yeah.
La Fanier, I just was getting good at it and then she transferred. But she's still working.
Okay, Mr. Travis.
Yes, sir. As you can see, next item, we have our county attorney, Ms. Baker, to bring what we believe to be good news to this board in regards to the proposed North Carolina opioid settlement.
Yes, well, the first thing I've got up here is the PowerPoint that the Association of County Commissioners has sent out. And I think most of you have had a chance to see that. And it goes over really the primary difference is without this, once a settlement occurs, a federal settlement, and North Carolina does receive its amount, which we hope is in the area of 850 million. Counties would only directly receive 15% under the automatic allocation that would be given. But with the memorandum of agreement that the association and working with a group of 5 commissioners, 5 county managers, and 5 attorneys has put together, along working together with the Department of Justice, the counties would receive, each county in North Carolina that signs off on this memorandum would receive directly 85% of their allocated share, which for Jackson County, if you saw that allocation sheet attached on the memorandum, would be, ours is 0.5%. So it's approximately $4 million over 18 years, but front loaded to where you would receive the majority of that in the first 3 years. So it makes a difference of whether or not counties would receive 15% directly or 85% directly by signing off on the memorandum. And so North Carolina is being proactive in trying to get this together and how it goes to and allocated to counties so that when the settlement does occur, this is already in place and ready to go to work and for the distribution. So I'll scroll through this. Of course, one thing to point out, we'll be able to spend the money once the county does receive the money on anything in this A group here. And then if we participate in a collaborative strategic planning cooperative that they will have set out for us, we'll also be able to spend the funds on this option B list. And so it will expand what we're able to spend the money on. And they do encourage you to look at regional issues as well. All of that's in here and how that can be done. And just moving this through, it's a lot of what I'm sure you've seen and read over, so I won't repeat it here. I will go. Want you to be is the memorandum itself. I'm sorry, this is the template. This is a resolution template. So this is what we'd be asked. And if this is something you want to move forward and have on the agenda, I'll work with your clerk to put this in our proper format and I'll put it on your agenda as a Jackson County resolution, which will then be sent to the association and the Department of Justice to show that Jackson County has signed the resolution. I will say, I know Commissioner Wood had a question previously about the deadline. I did ask Amy Basin and Paige Worsham with the association, and they said that there's not a specific deadline. I think they're gearing towards October. They want everybody to have it done by October is their goal. But obviously, the sooner the better. And they were excited to know that you were going to have it on your agenda today. So, and I was going to go to the memorandum. And the memorandum itself is rather lengthy, but if I'm going to scroll to the bottom, I think one interesting portion of the memorandum or, with the exhibits here is really the last exhibit, and that is the allocation per county. And then you can see Jackson County on here, just 0.5%. And I always look at the counties around us and you can see Haywood here at 0.8 and Macon at 0.4. So just where we usually kind of fall in between those two. And I'll answer any questions.
So one thing, Ms. Baker, if you would, and this is as much for the board, for the public as it's for the board, and you may have mentioned this and you didn't, I apologize. So this is predicated on all 100 counties. And you would talk about that a little bit.
Well, they're saying that, and that by that, I mean, the Association of Department Adjusters are saying they want all 100 counties on board. And the reason is I think they think, you know, if you were one of these big companies trying to entertain a settlement, you want everybody signing off. You want to make sure there's not going to be one left out there that can still come against you. But there's some indication, as long as a majority of counties signed off on this, they would proceed in this way and kind of figure that out. But their goal is definitely to have 100 counties signed. So there are no questions. And so that's why they're anxious to get this started. And I think once they start seeing that, once they're able to show, well, these counties have signed, that they hope it will help some of the other counties who may have a question about it join on as well.
And the language is the same for every county to sign.
The memorandum is the same. Yeah, some of the questions that I've heard, of course, some of the questions, the counties that are in the litigation have questions about how local counsel will be paid. But as if you remember, you had local counsel approach you if we had joined the litigation, but I understand that there is a fund, a separate fund that will come from this that will be to pay counsel, and that will have to be from that fund. So they all have questions about that. That's not something that Jackson County has to worry about. So those are some questions that I'm hearing, but really from the counties and the meetings I've been in, that's been the only question.
And I don't know that I have ever personally seen numbers that go that far out past the decimal point used to factor in any kind of formula. I mean, unless you're in some kind of math class, that's unreal to have that kind of precise. I mean, that equals down to pennies.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board? Tom, do you have any questions? Okay, I see your head shaking no. I guess everyone comfortable with this being on our next agenda? Move forward with this, or?
Yes,
All right, maybe we'll be one of the first counties to approve.
maybe.
All right,
I
the next item,
Say that Heather's done a great job. Good job, Heather.
Thank you, Tom. I'm just a messenger, but I'm glad to be messenger for something good.
so next item, as you can see, we have the updated summary for the budget request. So I'm gonna, right now, I think Darlene has some things we're gonna pass. You have the copies for everybody.
Yes, I do.
So while Darlene is passing out copies for everybody, this was emailed to you. It was really emailed to the entire board. And while Darlene's passing that out, then we'll put up on screen. Again, this will be relatively the same information that was given to the board previously, just now with the updated request. As you know, Ms. Fox and I have been meeting with all the departments and operations in the last couple of weeks. So Brian, did you tell me?
It's in that yellow folder down there. I think that's, sorry, okay.
All right, so this is all being shared, correct?
Yes, you're on the shared screen.
So what you should have in order, the first item that you have is just the updated list in regards to the, and I apologize, let me sit here and open this up so I can see what I'm looking at here. All right, so you should have the updated list for the nonprofits. I'm trying to wait to get this up on screen. You can tell this is a new computer. Nobody's using Adobe Acrobat file at this point. So as you can see, ultimately, you do have a list of the nonprofits themselves. Nonprofits themselves. and then the request and the percentage increase. The number below represents new requests. So if you look at the highlight that's on the screen, these represent new program requests from these different entities. Self-explanatory. Ms. Fox does have the nonprofit books in the back of the room that everybody can take home with them and obviously look at the information at your pleasure. The next item that we have, it should be in your packets, is going to be the capital outlay detail. And on that detail, only change in that, I don't necessarily need to pull it up. It is included in here. I'll pull it up here since we do have capital outlay request. So this is the same information received before in regards to the capital outlay. The only addition to this is security cameras for the library complex. Other than that, all the requests remain the same as our previous meeting back in April. The next item that's passed out to you is capital improvements detail. And we did have several changes here or just additions to it. And I'll just quickly go over that with the board. So in the capital improvements, what we do have is originally in the Cashier's Library aging sidewalk amount, we had $25,000. That amount has been increased to $50,000 as far as the request goes. Just anticipating increased cost as we proceed forward into next year. Going past the first page, addition to or and above and beyond is the next, from the last presentation. East LaPorte, if you went back and looked at the last document handed out to you, East LaPorte didn't have the $65,000 listed here. All that is a movement from another area. We had another area with $65,000 worth of picnic shelter replacements, and we just put it into the appropriate location. So otherwise, really no other changes in regards to the capital improvement request. Everything else has remained the same. The final item is the personnel request. First page remains the same. Just a reminder to everybody in tax office. This is really more, it looks more than it is. The tax administrator set up multiple options, 3 options for each of her divisions. So she's not asking for all 3 options. She's asking for one of the options out of the 3 to be implemented. No new items on the second page. Third page. Oh, excuse me. Jumping up too much. Hang on. No new items on the second page. Third page. We did have some items that we just didn't list last time. In the tax office, the administrator is asking for 2 new positions in the reevaluation budget. And we did not have that listed to you last time. Everything else is relatively the same as what was presented before. If you go to the next page where you do see fire, and this is something we're going to discuss at our next topic here, you can see under the fire budget, what is being proposed is the existing fire district service coordinators for their grades to be increased from 18 to 20. That was not included in your last request. And then you also will see 5 new positions to be funded for Balsam, Canada, Koala, Savannah, and Silva. And we'll discuss that more in detail when I talk to the board about conversations with the fire chiefs. Also, what is new that you didn't see last time is hopefully you do take a tour if you haven't already taken a tour, but I hope everybody saw the one-stop center when you walked into this facility. Well, now what we have is we have multiple employees from 2 different agencies sitting up front there, basically from our code enforcement office and from our health department office. So what is being proposed and requested is ultimately that we bring all of these processing assistant fours, if you see that from the health department, to bring them up a couple grades to match some of the other employees that are in that area. So if you flip to the next page, you'll see under the health department, you'll see that from code enforcement, you'll see additional positions also being increased from 15 to 17. But you'll see that they are being moved from code enforcement to the health department. Basically, what we're doing is we're taking all the positions that are currently working for code enforcement that work up front, and we're moving them under the supervision of ultimately the health director. And what that does is that it gives one chain of command on how that whole front office is to be operated. And this is something that Tony and Shelley and the planning department, they've all been discussing and understand and agree that this really needs to be under one chain of command in order for the one stop to appropriately work correctly. And basically, that is all of the changes that have been made from the original request. And these are just things that we identify as we go through the details. Sometimes we miss them. Sometimes things change as we're going through our budget process itself. And so just a reminder to the board, next Tuesday is when I'll come to you with the county manager's recommended budget. And then we're going to have conversations today. The next topic of discussion is about your upcoming budget meetings. And at that point, once the manager's recommended budget comes to the commissioners, it becomes.
Any questions about any of these documents that have been presented? I know it's a lot to digest. Take a look at it.
I had just a couple questions that jumped out on this one for capital improvements. Repair ditch below Coon Hunters Club. Is that club location on county property?
Yes.
It is. It's
Oh,
on
okay.
Mineral Springs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is
okay.
a slider.
Because I just thought, we wouldn't repair somebody's private property. Okay.
So this is a slide. This is a slide area we're dealing with.
Oh, okay.
That it's coming down on DOT road, and it's just something that we're going to
Needs
need
to
to
be there,
deal
sure.
with.
And then I was just curious, East Laporte, are we building another picnic shelter there? I know that one's used so
We're
much.
replacing it, the existing.
Is something wrong with it?
Yeah, it's just older and it's becoming
Oh.
dilapidated, and it's just in need of replacement.
Okay.
I got a question on that Colway revitalization, $5,000 request.
Uh-huh.
Do we know what that's for, or Tom maybe knows what that's for?
I have to pull out the specifics in the request, but ultimately, this is an organization we previously funded. We generally help them with planning and then just organizational costs. But the details will be, when you get your nonprofit book, you'll be able to pull that tab open and get into the details of that request. But that's
And
that.
one thing,
I'm sorry.
one thing I was gonna mention about the circles of hope in Cashers, we did not fund them last year because they were not up and running yet. And we asked them to, I guess historically, and Chairman McMahon had mentioned this several times, that we don't fund startups as far as nonprofits. Once they're up and running and we see that they are serving our community. And I have been in contact with a couple of people there that they did an amazing job, even during COVID, reaching out, and have been up and running for a year now, are serving an unserved population of people in the Cashers area that they felt was overlooked, and they went out and found some people that needed jobs, encouragement. That's what the Circles of Hope does. I'm sure it's in their report. But I just wanted to make that point that we did ask them to get up and running, and they have. So
Well, they're doing great things in Cassia.
Yes, they really are.
Yeah.
On the curve grant, they requested $750 for welcome sign renovation, maintenance, $1,200 to update their website, $1,800 as a match for a grant they received, and $1,200 for a student intern.
Well, that's great reason. Thank you.
I do not see on here a request from the Jackson County Farmers Market.
They didn't submit one.
Oh,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, they're
Who's the director now?
they're sort of in disarray right
Okay,
Oh.
well, I knew they had approached me about it and I
now. The
encouraged
lady, what was her name?
Oh,
Lisa.
yes.
She no longer does that. And then they had a fellow that picked it up and was kind of just taking care of it. And I think Key's no longer doing that, so probably there's no one to. Can we check about it?
You can. I was gonna follow up too, the people that called me, because I know
Follow.
I had 2 phone calls about it and I encouraged them to, as I have for the last several years, that I know this board has supported local markets and local agricultural business and if there was a way that we could help them, that we would, and we haven't seen in the last 2 years a grant request yet.
What was their past amount requests?
We've never had one,
No, farmers market never had one.
never have submitted one.
Hey,
And if something,
I thought
if we don't follow through and kind of gets through the crack because of a timeline now, would the municipality grant would that make them eligible for that if they apply? No, it has to be a capital type. Gotcha.
So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because we're jumping into to nonprofits. So I need to tell you this before we go too far down this road. I was going to wait till we got into the calendar discussion because I know some dates were going to be changed around. And I was going to let the board know that, without giving away what's coming up next week for the recommendation, too much of it, I do believe we will have a lot fewer nonprofits appearing before the board. Following through. Now, they'll be offered to appear before you, but it won't necessarily be for requesting of funding. Now, there's a second part of this too, that I wanted to go ahead and just plant the seed with the board that coming up in the summer, we're going to need to develop plans for the recovery funds, the American Recovery Act funds. Now, very briefly, I've mentioned to the board that I'm hoping that we can move forward with priorities for human services, okay? But I also believe that we can, Darlene and I are talking about revenue replacement, like for recreation and things of that nature. But I also believe there is a provision that allows for partnerships with nonprofits with the recovery funds. And so part of the overall plan is past this budget process is to start hopefully designating a portion of those funds and challenge nonprofits to come in. They'll have to work within the rules that are provided to us for these funds, but to set up a process. I don't know what the amount that would be recommended to be set aside would be, but to set aside some monies specifically for nonprofits who can basically help partner with Jackson County to achieve the goals of the American Recovery Act funds. I mentioned that to you because we have a lot of partners here that potentially could go down that line. When you start talking about human services, especially when you start talking about food, when you start talking about access to, I believe the farmer's market at one point was EBT, was accepting different forms of payment. And so I just want to let you know, I believe there's going to be opportunities coming, okay, that go beyond what we're discussing here as far as these requests. And so I just mentioned that to you because I'd like to go ahead and plant that seed, especially if some of y'all have I know some of you do work with some of the nonprofits, and I believe there's going to be opportunity. If the board chooses to move forward with what's going to be presented to you, there's going to be opportunities out there for nonprofits to not only look at what we're dealing with here, but potentially come in with new requests or new not necessarily new programs, but expansion of existing. I don't think they necessarily, there's several that I know is out there that they're just a hop and skip away from meeting the goals and objectives of what I think the Recovery Act funds would be. So anyways, I wanted to go ahead and throw that out to let everybody know that there's going to be opportunities beyond this discussion for nonprofits.
Speaking to Stephanie Edwards this morning with the Chamber of Commerce and Cashers, she complimented your conversation with her regarding the transportation potentials and ideas. And she's in the process of probably 3/4 or more getting the information you all discussed about use and needs, assessments, et cetera. So I just want to thank you for reaching out to her and giving her that time, and hope there'd be something come to fruition of that.
So if you want to give the board a little background.
There is some recovery funding that could be used for transportation and transporting individuals to certain work locations like the Southern County in partnerships with some private clubs that are going ahead, moving forward and going to structure some type of transportation, as well as potentially using some of those funds with transit and partnering at a key place in Cullowhee where there is a lot of potential employment opportunities for students who generally go to the southern end of the county because everybody's looking for staff. It's countywide. So there's a potentially, it might not be something that we can do annually, but it might be something to jumpstart some ideas and create some of those private-public partnerships that we've talked about initiate.
So to take that a step further, so I talked to Stephanie and I asked Stephanie, we got to get into the details and needs when you start talking about transportation routes and so forth and timing and so forth. So I'm glad she's doing that survey that I'd asked her to do. To take that a little bit further, as Darlene and I have been meeting with departments, we've been having this conversation internally, meaning, do we have employees that would want to take a van? We have employees and Cashers too. So, and so do people like the school system, and so do people. So we started asking these questions internally, and we're getting some feedback, and meaning we're getting some potential need there too. And so if you ever dealt with transportation routes, the primary goal is to get a base of the route filled. And once you get the base of the route filled, once you start down that path, then that's what allows it to, for lack of better terms, to blossom into other things. And so we're getting positive feedback there too. And then if we have, the challenge is always, there's no one route that meets everybody's needs. So then the reality is can you fill the base of those routes? And so hopefully we'll come out of this with Stephanie's information and the information that we're collecting that we'll be able to have enough demand and need. And again, with the monies that Commissioner Jones is talking about, it allows us to take opportunities that aren't normally there, but I think we're going to have more need than maybe anticipated.
Good. Thank you.
And then I wanted to just make one comment about this teen challenge of the Smokies. They have reached out to me about possibly receiving funds and they are a nonprofit. And they're one of the few entities that directly serve opioid and drug addicted individuals in Jackson and Macon as well. But they're also have just expanded to be doing job training. They have a mechanic. They built I guess a garage, and they're training the men there to be, this is an all male facility, but they train them to be mechanics. They're doing woodworking and they're selling it out of 441 at that Teen Challenge thrift store. If you want to go by there, they're selling wooden things that they're making now. And I think they're really, but anyway, so they're doing job skills, job training, as well as they're helping these men be free of drug addiction.
Any other questions or comments about this item so far on the budget?
Travis?
So next item of discussion is discussing the budget calendar. And so this is the meeting dates for, obviously, for these good conversations that you're having right now, for you to come back together and have these conversations on any budgetary topic. And so what I wanted to do is go ahead and this is the last meeting schedule that your clerk, Ms. Winchester, had sent out to everyone. And as you can see our next regular meeting is May 18th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. That is when the recommended budget will come to the board. And then after that, it becomes the board's budget in which for you to discuss and debate and make final decisions. Currently, right now, we do have May 24th, 8:30. We do have 8:30 to noon scheduled out. That meeting is scheduled to be held at SEC Borough Building. And so just so you know, I do have that scheduled, and that generally is with the school systems sheriff, the larger operation. Normally, what would happen is that Tuesday, the 25th, is the day that would be offered up to nonprofits. But again, like I said, we may or may not have that slated full. You'll understand why I'm saying that after you see my recommended budget. So what I wanted to point out there is you're going to have opportunity that day to talk about budget. And so instead of just planning on spending your whole day listening to presentations, I think we can get a couple hours of budget discussions in that meeting. And then obviously the Wednesday would be optional depending on where you're at. Meaning those are the days that we've scheduled. I had y'all set the Monday and Tuesday, but then the Wednesday would be optional. Then ultimately, the next Tuesday, that is a regularly scheduled meeting day that we would actually hold the public hearing that evening at 5:55 p.m. But that day is also available for a special work session. And then you would have the public hearing on the budget that evening at 5:55. And then that evening at 6 p.m. is when it's on June 1st is when you have your regular scheduled meeting. And then what the board had done is scheduled June 2nd. Brian, is that still the June 2nd?
Right now, but it could potentially change.
Well, what I'm saying is I think we have, just to let everybody know, Mr. Mcknight and I was talking about that he may have a conflict on June 2nd. And I'm sitting here showing everybody, well, we have some time in here to discuss this. So if we're not able to meet the June 2nd, so ultimately, if we're willing to go out and have some conversations, more conversations on the 25th, and even if you can meet on May 26th, and then if you feel necessary, you can meet the day of June 1st. And if you're not done, ultimately, if you can't meet on June 2nd, then I really drop deadlines for us, for you as a board to be making final decisions would be June 7th and then ultimately June 8th. Because at the end of the day, we would be presenting the budget for adoption on June 15th. And then these are all optional, 7th, 8th, and 9th. I can tell you, as you start making some changes here, just remember any minor change at the last minute, what it does is it alters the entire numbers through the entire. So if all of a sudden you at the last minute, you thought of something that was not necessarily large in cost that you felt like you should have put in there, you actually can do that at the next meeting. I'm letting everybody know. I'm trying to protect Darlene, just so you know, it's not me in this conversation because the amount of work.
Don't bring it up.
Well, no, I wasn't gonna say don't bring it. I'm just saying, just remember, you as a board have options to deal with things like that. Now, if all of a sudden you wanted to make $1 million salary change, that's not something that could be done last minute. So, and so I throw this back to the board for discussion. And everybody have on their calendar the 24th and 25th. And then if you do, then you can see where the days are available. And I just put this in front of you so you don't schedule these days so that it'll give you plenty of days for you as a board to meet as much as you feel like you need to make final decisions.
Any questions or comments from anyone?
I'm gonna be actually on vacation. I'm leaving for May 20th and won't be back till the 29th, but I can still do all these meetings from Zoom.
Correct, yeah. Can we go with you?
I don't know. It depends on if you like the Florida Keys or not.
Oh.
I don't think everyone want to go? I see everyone's hands going up.
No, I've been there. It's too hot.
Better.
Oh, okay.
All right, I think we're good.
Okay. Next item of discussion is, you do have a memo in your packets, and I'll bring it up online here. What I'm doing here is just providing the board a summary, just a little bit of history here. Obviously, the board has been in conversations regarding Colway Volunteer Fire Department moving to full-time status. The board has indicated its willingness to look at potentially an overall general tax rate increase of 1 cent to help fund that. Previously, the board had discussed once the Colway Volunteer Fire Department goes full-time, that there's approximately $400,000 in the fire fund that would become available. The board would have to decide what to do with that. And it was indicated that the board wished for me to go meet with the fire chiefs and have a discussion about their needs. I know you know, as a board know that. I'm just trying to really set this up for the public and whoever else may be watching. So what I have is a memo enclosed in your packets. As you can see, on April 26th, county staff met with 5 fire chiefs. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the $400,000 that may become available in the fire fund if Colway Volunteer Fire Department does become full-time operation. Cashers Glenville Volunteer Fire Department, Colway Volunteer Fire Department, and Highlands Volunteer Fire Department did not attend because funding for their operations are handled separately, whether it be an individual fire tax or what we've been discussing with Colway. So if you look, I listed out everybody who attended the meeting. You did have Chief Brian McMahon from Balsam, Chief Terry McCall from Canada Fire and Rescue, Chief Kent Moore from Qualla Fire and Rescue, Chief Mike Beck from Silva Fire Department, Chief Floyd Green from Savannah Fire Department, myself, Mr. Dillard, Director of Emergency Management, and Michael Forbes for our fire marshal. So basically, again, the premise of that meeting was to just discuss the needs of those 5 fire departments. And what I've tried to do is just give you a brief summary of the conclusion of that meeting. And at the conclusion, the 5 fire chiefs agreed. The 5 fire chiefs agreed that an additional administrative person at each firehouse would greatly assist in their operations. Hence, if you go back to the information I provided to the board, we gave you the numbers of what those additional 5 firefighters would cost. Estimated cost, this includes benefits and everything for all 5 positions, is $270,910. The fire chiefs also would like to see some type of pay per call provided to each member who responds to an emergency. It's recommended that this pay per call be set at $12, and the remaining $129.90 would be used to cover these costs. Now, the fire chiefs talked about $10. I'm telling you, I brought the $12 here. And the reason I did is I got to talking a little bit more with Cashers, and Cashers pays $12. And so right now, I believe town of Silva pays a smaller one. Do you remember what Mike said it was? I mean, it's less than $10.
The $5
It's very,
depend on the year.
so the town of Silva pays less than $10. And if you looked at the Cashers Glenville Fire Department, they're currently paying $12. So the reason I came back, even though the fire chiefs talked about 10, I just thought, well, let's just try to make it universal through the county and make it $12 per call. The 129 would cover that. If you recall, we gave you call data a few meetings ago. I believe the 129 more than covers that cost. I ran some numbers. If 5 members responded to every call, which that does not happen because those have medical calls and things of that nature. That easily covered the $10. And so I just don't think, I think the 129 easily covers that. And then the final conversation that was being held, as we were talking to the fire chiefs, it was becoming apparent that many of the departments have some expenses that they feel like that are coming on them this coming year. I believe there's a lot of air packs and a lot of bottles, as they call it, that are needing replacement, and they're all coming at the same time because a lot of it was purchased with grants in the previous time that they're purchased. So the conversation really started going down the line of personal protective equipment for firemen. And so what was discussed was there's needs regarding these personal protective equipment. So it's also requested the commissioners consider assisting with these needs. It's requested that Jackson County be prepared to expend up to $50,000 per department, $250,000 to match other funding sources. And note I say other funding sources because, for example, 4 out of the 5 can go get state grants, but the town of Silva or the Silva Fire Department, since they're a town department, doesn't qualify for state grants. So we could talk about matching funds that they fundraise. We could talk about matching grants that they get, or we could be talking about matching the town of Silva. So just something ultimately making available up to $50,000 to match other funding sources to go towards the purchase of personal protective equipment. Now, as you all recall, we always look at, well, I look at budgets as far as capacity, really meaning, are we trying to fund an ongoing expense or are we trying to fund a one-time expense? Well, although this may be potentially a continuing conversation, I think the initial time we should look at this as a one-time, and let's just see how the fire departments come back and submit their request. Brian, you and I were talking about when is the grant cycle for the state grants?
The state grant cycle is, it opens in February or March, and they announce the award in May. So it's a few short months every spring, early spring, late winter, early spring for the state grant. And then the federal grant is open in the spring, and then they start announcing federal announcements from FEMA in September. So, and I think just adding to what Don has said, a lot of our departments applied for the federal grant, the FEMA grant 10 years ago, and were awarded for new SCBAs, air packs, bottles, that kind of stuff, 10 to 15 years ago. And that's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you buy all new equipment at the same time. Well, it all expires at the same time. So then it puts you in a position to try to replace it. And for example, and I'll just use this as an example of SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. You know, you're talking about a bottle and a pack and a mask and all that whole unit, about $8,000 for the whole unit. But the packs have a much longer life than the bottles. The bottles, most departments are now using, because of the weight concerns, they're using fiber wrapped bottles. It's a composite bottle made out of a fiberglass wrap. And it's got a 15-year shelf life. And after 15 years, they will not allow them to be used because of just the way they were manufactured. And there's always a concern it could not operate properly. So you're required by law to replace those after 15 years. And I think most departments are in the same position where we're knocking on that 15-year door and trying to figure out a way. So that was where this discussion came into play, is trying to find a way. If we can get them on a grant again and cost share, then it makes it much more achievable. And if we could partner together and buy in bulk and replace several departments together out of the same purchase, it could mean that we get a cheaper price by negotiating out in bulk. So there's a lot of discussion that was had that day about how can we approach this to provide this protective equipment and to meet these requirements and do it in a very cost-effective way that benefits everyone. And I also just will say, having been at this meeting, what these three items that were talked about was a unanimous decision by all five departments. There was no question. We walked out of that room. This was something that we felt like that would benefit all five departments, and that it was a unanimous decision.
And the money for that 250, has it been set aside for the matching grants, et cetera, or would that come out of another fund source?
So the way I would present this to the board is we would, because of the timing, I want Brian to explain, it's going to take a little bit for the fire departments to figure out what other funding sources were available. All the fire chiefs agreed that if there's other funding sources out there, they're going to attempt to go for them. So the reality is my conversation with Darlene has been, well, at this point, instead of just setting it aside, it's something that you as a board, we do have a good fund balance, and you as a board, if we go ahead and set this as something you intend to do, then when the fire departments get in a place to come and present their request, meaning the list of equipment and how they're trying to fund for it, then it will just be a fund balance allocation.
For example, Mark, we applied at Balsam for the bottle replacements through the federal grant. We won't hear back till September of this year whether we'll get the federal grant. If we don't get the federal grant, then our plan is to apply on the state grant in the next cycle, which will be the spring of 2022. But if we're awarded the state grant, which is a real good possibility that we would get it, the purchase would not take place till after May, has to be made by September. So it could necessarily be in the next budget year. So it could be that this whole budget year, we wouldn't even be asking anything. It might be in a whole nother budget year before we got to that point.
And I think just going and letting the fire departments know that the board is willing to proceed with these conversations with the intention of matching, then that just puts them in a good position to basically do what Brian was saying, look at the different opportunities and try to take advantage of them when they can.
And I think it's been about 8 years ago. For example, Balsam Fire Departments applied for a federal grant, did the administrative work. The county provided the match money, and we ended up getting through the federal grant all new two-way communication radios for all the departments in the county. They were all under one umbrella, under one grant cycle. So that's another good example of where we all come together and saved a lot of money.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so pleased that y'all approached it this way and got these different fire departments together. I did have someone from the Qualla, a former volunteer from the Qualla Fire Department, reach out to me and felt that it was very unfair for Cullowhee to get the one cent, all that money. From this meeting, did you get a sense that these fire chiefs felt like it was fair the way that you've approached this? Do they feel that it's right for Cullowhee to have full-time now? What was the sense, I guess I'm asking.
I did not hear any expression from a negative about this moving in the direction of Cullowhee becoming a full-time staff department at this meeting, nor have I heard those expressions from any of these individuals privately. And I even went as far to say to the group that, Cullowhee has spent quite a bit of time putting together a plan and presented the plan to the county and is ready to move forward. And at any point in the future that any of these other departments feel the same, then the opportunity and the door is open for them to come and make a presentation as well in the future.
Sure.
But everything seemed to be very cooperative, and I
That
or
sounds
nothing.
great.
We all recognize too, like it's been stated before, is that we all rely on each other to help each other through mutual aid agreements, because none of us could do what we do without the help of the others.
Well, great, thank you.
Any other questions from board members about what's?
So this is one of these things that it will be addressed and reflected in the recommended budget coming.
The only additional comment that I would make, and this is somewhat in the same line of thought, but it is a different topic. I would like for staff to look at our rescue squads. I think they also suffer from some of the same problems that the fire department suffer from as far as recruitment and retention. And I know there's this effort on paper call to address some of that, as well as funding sources. So we do have 2 rescue squads in the county, and I just asked staff to take a look at that. I think there might be some opportunities to assist them in some way. And with a future budget discussion. Any other thoughts or comments before we move on to the next topic? Okay. Ready?
As you can see, other business, this is follow up on the Conrad Burrow Road naming. What I'd asked, when this was previously discussed, a lot of this information was sitting in your clerk's office. So I'd asked Ms. Winchester just to pull this information together. I'm not necessarily going to go through all the details of it. This first page is a summary of everything. And just to catch the board up or just remind everybody where we're at on this. So in that checklist, there was a required NCDOT application, which is completed within this packet that's been provided to you. An NCDOT character certification form, which is attached, is completed, but it's not currently signed. A map. There is a description attached, but if the board chose to move forward, we would just have GIS put together a map based on that description. Resolution passed by the Jackson County Board of Commissioners. The draft resolution is attached. A copy of the meeting minutes that state the resolution was passed and the opportunity for public input was provided. That would have to be done after any action was taken. The next bullet point is a minimum of 3 recommendation letters from civic, business, or service organizations. The only thing we could find from the previous discussion was 2 letters. They're enclosed right now. One's from Silver Rotary and the other from Southwestern Community College. So potentially, if the board chose to move forward, there needs to be a 3rd. A letter from the family indicating that they are aware and approve the honorary designation. The attached is the previous letter from the family. And then a written documentation that affirms the willingness of the local government to sponsor and to participate financially in the amount of $2,000. And so this is responding to the request of Commissioner Jones. This is basically providing the board information of what previously been brought up.
And Commissioner Jones, you presented this request to have this item placed back on the agenda to review again. Is it possible for us to lay this in your lap and you follow up and make sure these items are checked off? At some point we can bring it back.
And I heard correctly, I just glanced through this, we need a 3rd letter of endorsement. Or are we correct?
Correct.
We got SCC, we have Rotary, and we need a 3rd and the families, which is it.
The family's in there.
Yes, sir, I'll work on this.
So if you lay this in his lap, does that mean that's what we're gonna do?
Well, he's going to complete, he's asked for this to be back on the agenda. And then if these items have to be finished before we can even vote on it. And then we bring it before the board for a vote. Right now, it's not in a form to vote on.
Why would you go through and do all that if, and maybe we're not going to pass it?
We don't know
Why would
that.
you go ask people to write a letter to get them in there knowing maybe that you're not going to? I don't understand why we're doing this again.
It's new information for me. I wasn't part of the original conversation and discussion. I've had numerous individuals call me, nowhere close to 50, but to put this on, revisit this. And I gave word as I was running for commissioner that I would revisit this issue. And the importance of Conrad Burrell to that section of the road, that's where he was raised, the Old Blackwood Railroad Company was located there. It's a big DOT. It's something.
Yeah, we've discussed all that.
Okay.
We've been through that, and probably one of the most prominent buildings in the county is named after him. When you walk in that building, there's a portrait of him. Probably there's not a portrait in the whole county. Y'all can think if there's another one that's more prominent in a building than that portrait. And just have, and when you bring this back up again and start it, then if somebody votes against it or whatever, it brings bad feelings and stuff right back again. And we were somewhat, this was behind us, and we had decided not to do that. And the biggest reason we decided, not against him or at all or anything, is that he had been recognized prominently. And there's prominent people in this county that's never been recognized. So why is it we keep recognizing one person over and over? Somebody even mentioned a lady up on County Fork that she was a musician. And known world,
Mary Jane Queen.
known throughout the country. And different people. Coach Robinson, Bob Setzer. So many people have done a lot for soil and water, did a lot for wildlife and whatever. But we're not considering into that. We're considering continue. I mean, I don't understand why we're doing this again. I don't understand why we're being put in a situation where we have to discuss and kick this around again. Not only that, we're asking somebody else to write another letter, so we'll have to offend or defend against such.
I think the Borough Building at SCC campus is a dedication to his decades of service to SCC, STI, and SCC. The other side of that recognition is to honor all of the work he did for Western North Carolina and projects in Jackson County from the DOT's perspective. That's where I'm kind of coming with it, is yes, he's got recognition. And I knew Miss Queen, knew Coach Setzer, and worked with Dan Robinson, Chancellor Robinson. All of those are great names. And maybe those are a reason we ought to look to give them recognition, whether it's on the new snack building that we're doing at the ballparks, something of that nature. But I think there's a lot of opportunities to recognize those individuals as well.
One of the names up there that's pushing this is Southwestern Community College.
They're one of the ones that was a sponsor.
Well, I mean, they've had their deal with him. He's on the Rotary Club, I guess.
Well, at the last time this was brought forward, the vote was held by this board and it was a 2-2 vote, which means the motion failed because there was not a tiebreaker. 2-2. Commissioner Jones has requested for it to be put back on the agenda. As any commissioner has the right to do. So that's why we have it here today. If any board member does not want to vote on it, the next time that we vote on it, then that's their prerogative.
This is strictly a political thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item, Mr. Manager.
Next item is just bringing before the board, proceeding forward with the conversation with the wording on the statute. And I want to apologize. The newspapers, I want to go ahead and point out, have gotten the original one that was presented, and they got printed in the Smoky Mountain with the I in there, and that's.
I misspelled Unum. My computer did not recognize, the spell check did not recognize Latin. But Miss Baker did.
She's good.
And so,
She's good.
And so
I didn't-
Don
I didn't
sent them
notice
the
it.
wrong one. Of course, I've redone it and sent the new one.
so anyways, I'm pointing this out so that Holly and Beth and everybody that's maybe watches this on YouTube later, here's the correct version. They'll use that version. Ultimately, what's priced out in your package is basically, let me zoom in here a little bit. You can see the total amount is $11,190.65 plus $19.10 for installation. We don't pay the tax portion of it. Get refunded the tax. So what is being priced here is an aluminum panel pedestal wrap. They're calling it. It's the 4-inch fabricated aluminum pan. Now that's the only thing that's aluminum here, okay? And the pan is basically what they're calling a pan is ultimately is what will literally sit on top right here. So, and that way, if you recall what's there, the flag does have depth to it. And we don't necessarily want to go in trying to chisel off that. It could potentially ruin the whole statue itself as far as other parts. So a pan would actually cover everything up. And then ultimately the price would be to do a cast bronze plaque that would go on top of the pan with the wording that was described, and then 2 cast bronze plaques that cover up at the bottom there. So let me just go back to it. So you would have priced in there the cast bronze plaque that go on top of the pan with this wording, a cast bronze plaque that goes here because there's actually wording there too, where we can put stars or something of that nature on it. And then the cast bronze plaque that goes here that has the E pluribus unum on it.
Can I ask a question? It says here, flat panel wrap to conceal 3 surrounding sides. Why does it have to go on the sides where there's
It's
nothing?
not, it's only got one. I had them
Not
quoted
the-
both
I'm
ways.
sorry, it's under the aluminum. See, flat panel wrap to conceal 3 surrounding sides.
That's just left over from a previous quote. It's not going to surround any sides other than.
Oh, good, okay.
Okay,
Good.
that's left
That's, I
over.
just wondered.
It's just the pan itself, and they left that
Okay, just cross that off.
that crossed that off. If you went and looked, at one point, I was trying to see, and I was quoting out whether or not we'd want to take this around to the sides to wrap it, the whole thing. And then to wrap it down here, and that just, it wasn't necessary, and so.
Because there's nothing on it, on the sides. So. Thank you.
So the pan is aluminum, but the plaque is bronze, which would mount to the pan.
Yeah, and now when people think aluminum, they think of a silver color, and this, when they do aluminum, the aluminum is a dark color. You can make, so my point is it's not it's going to look right. It's
It
not
looked like cement.
no, it's going to look, it'll be dark.
Oh.
It'll be, See, aluminum can be, this is something I did previously. You can do, I was involved with this company making military seals, okay? And we went for between bronze and aluminum can be colored. It can do all sorts, and it's baked on, it's not painted. And so my point is it's just the type of metal is what, there's no reason to have the pan out of bronze. That's my point. It'll last just as long as bronze.
Okay.
It'll do just as well as bronze, but going with bronze on the plaque itself is what's going to ensure that when over time, it's going to look like that statue. Weather like that.
And look like the back, which is already bronze. So that's good.
Is it bronze or is it copper?
No, it's bronze. Copper turns kind of
Green.
green as it ages.
Well, you mean the statue itself?
No, where it says our beloved mothers and,
Yeah, the reconciliation.
Yeah.
Black, I can't remember.
it's on the back.
I
It's
just-
bronze.
Okay.
Yeah, I went and looked at it.
So this, just to clarify, this quote is just to place a plaque on the front only that would have those words as generated by Commissioner Woody and myself and presented to the board.
Right.
Any questions or comments about the request?
But it pleases the board. I mean,
And then stars, do we need to say that about putting stars on the above E pluribus unum?
Yeah, right on that level right
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
That was another place where it'll be a small plaque.
Yes.
I mean, I just, anything, if the board's okay with this, what we do is we go ahead and pull the trigger, I move monies out of contingency to do it. They go back, this company will go back and do a spec design before they go build.
They'd let us see it.
Yeah, they don't just order the plaque, they go through and design everything. and
Okay.
They don't design it until you pull the purchase order.
Okay.
And then they'll go back and put design work in and then you'll see
Okay.
what the plaque, it's no
Good.
different than, this is a company that did the sign, for example, the emblem that's in the front of this building,
Yes.
okay, and the sign that's in front of the Justice Center, and before we go purchase those signs, they come back with, I'll show it to you, it specs out, shows you what it shows you the dimensions,
Oh, that's
everything.
fine. Well, and one thing, and, you know, as a visual person, we talk quite a bit about the size and there's significance to the size of the font. And we would like that to be followed.
We are gonna use this picture,
Thank you.
so that.
Good.
So they're going to match that font almost exactly, they'll go
Yeah.
through and. Font,
I think
the size,
Commissioner,
it'll be-
you did a great job. Thank you.
So can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So this is spending $13,000 to cover the Confederate flag. Is that what we're doing with this?
That would be correct.
I think it's a waste of money myself.
Okay.
Just my 2 cents, that's all.
Okay, well, and we're not voting on it today. We'll put it on the next agenda. This is just give us a chance to sort of see the quote and we'll formally take action on it at our next meeting. Any other questions or comments? Did they indicate what kind of time frame?
I'd have to follow up with
Okay.
Chad and see. I can't
Thank
follow
you
up
for
with that.
doing that.
Okay, next item.
That is all that I have. We do have a closed session before we
Okay.
leave today. There will be no requested action after closed session.
Commissioner Striblin,
Yes, sir.
I know you had requested that we have a discussion about the resolution about our Constitution. You want to
Yes.
wait till you're here in person to do that?
Okay. All right, is it, are we gonna get it on an agenda? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, I know you're not able to be with us today in person. Sometimes that sort of makes it a little bit more complicated. We're not under any kind of rush, but do you want to wait till you're here again in person for us to have a conversation about that, or do you want to proceed today, or?
I'd like to proceed today if we could.
Okay. Well, that's one item that we can talk about under other updates or other business. I know Commissioner Striblin had asked that we consider that. I'd also sent to you, Tom, did you get a copy of the resolution that the county we already had drafted but never had taken action on? Have you?
I'm not sure if I got that or not, Brian.
Okay. Well, I had emailed you a copy back of this at our last work session. Let's just hold off to the next meeting so you can be here and I can make sure you've got a copy of that one because I think we ought to compare them before we take action.
Okay. All right. Is that, you mean till the next work session?
We'll have another, well, we can actually put it on an agenda, an upcoming meeting. We can discuss it when you're going to be here. It'd be a lot easier since it's hard to show you a document that you don't have in your hand.
Right. No, I'll be here next Tuesday.
Okay. Well, we'll bring it up. Let's just do another business and we'll talk about it.
Okay. And then also I've got one other resident that called, is inquiring about something she heard about the elementary school behind Smoky Mountain. There's getting something about their Smoky Mountains wanting to take the track or their baseball field or something. You know anything about that?
Must be the concession stand, Fairview.
Yeah.
I bet that would be.
It's.
Only thing we know about is softball utilizing the Little League baseball fields out at Fairview. Could that possibly be it?
Yeah, I don't know. I need to get more information about that before I actually bring it up, I guess.
Okay. And then likewise, I'm just going to, for today's sake, I'll hand out.
So, hey, hey, Tom, on that, if it is the softball, there's probably going to be a story in the paper about that. If it is the high school softball team moving to the Fairview Elementary School.
Yeah.
If that is the issue, just so you know, our rec director, myself, Chairman, we've met with Little League people out on site, talk about concessions. There's been a lot of conversations held about that. If that's the issue, if you would just let me know, give me a call and I'll give you an update. I'll provide you all the information before you bring it to a public meeting. And then
Okay. All right. Okay.
And if it is that, you'll probably see an article in the paper next couple of weeks about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tom, they're not going to take away that field. They're going to upgrade it, and then there'll still be two other fields for Fairview to use.
Okay. Well, maybe she's just misunderstanding it or something.
Yeah, I think so.
And Heather, also, I didn't mean to not answer you on your email or take so long to answer you on your email about the opioid thing you sent me last week. I've been working 7 days a week for the past month now.
That's fine, Tom. That was just for your information, so no need to respond. That's just for you to have it.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to hand out, did you have one of these? Okay, anyway. And obviously, just to take with you today, and we'll briefly discuss, we've had two other requests, and Tom will get these to you. I know I didn't realize you weren't going to be here today, but two other requests. One, we sort of briefly mentioned once before, a resolution in support of that historic marker, recognizing the Cowee Tunnel 19, those 19 African-Americans that died down at Cowee Tunnel when they were constructing the railroad. So I'll provide this generic, real basic resolution that would just support the erection of that state historical marker. I know the NAACP, maybe the Historical Society are working to put in an application to the State Historical Commission for one of those markers, and they were looking for local support. So this is something we can take and just read and think about, and if it's something we want to take action on, then we'll put it on the agenda and vote on it. Like I said, today's first time, some of you may be seeing it, so take it and read it. And then the other one is a generic resolution, doesn't have any name on it, but this came before a request to us from, currently there is a House Bill 405 in the General Assembly that's for consideration. I'm not sure what the timeline is. Heather, do you have any idea what the timeline is?
I don't know.
So anyway, what they're considering is dividing the state district court district 30 into two judicial districts. It'd be 30A and 30B. It would be similar to what's now in place with the Superior Court. Is that right?
It changes it a little bit, but
Changes it a little bit, but it'd be the same basic concept. Right now, our Superior Court has two A and B, and then the district court would go to an A and B, but the Superior Court would realigned to be Jackson, Haywood, Swain. And then that would be the same alignment for the district court, Jackson, Haywood, Swain. And then Macon, Clay, Graham, and Cherokee would be in the B. And I think the impetus for this was, 5 of our district court judges out of the 6 district court judges that we have, 5 of them live in Haywood County. And there is really no one living in the far west. And I think there's, except one. And so those people in the far western part of our district have asked for this change to be made. It's my understanding all the judges in our district are endorsing this.
all the district court judges and Judge Letts.
All the district court judges and Judge Letts from Superior Court all have endorsed this. There's some mixed results from attorneys and other folks, but from the court perspective, there is unified support for this. It has been introduced, the legislation, I think, did Representative Clampett introduce
Yes.
this? Yes.
Representative Clampett, and then the one from Haywood, I forgot his name, just. Gillespie, is that right?
Macon. He's from Macon,
Oh,
Carl
okay.
Gillespie.
Yes, I think he was the co.
So it has
I
been
think he was the
introduced,
co-
and this is here again, something to take and read. And if we're interested, then we probably ought to act in the next couple of meetings.
Well, one added thing is, if they divide Jackson into a different district or section than Swain, what happens with the Qualla boundary being part in Jackson and
not.
part in Swain?
Jackson and Swain would be in.
Right, would be together, and that's another reason.
Yeah, that's what-
Sorry. That would be another reason to support this, as opposed to just Jackson and Haywood.
And then the other thing, Ms. Baker, you might want to share with, you had a conversation with one of our judges that some of the other added benefits to this division might provide some other opportunities for court.
What some of the district court judges are saying is that if you have a smaller district, that's Jackson, Haywood, and Swain, it might provide other opportunities here for specialized courts, like a drug court or a family court, where when they're so spread out and covering the 7 counties, we don't have the opportunity to do that. So that's one thing they've mentioned.
Does that affect our justice center space needs? Could that affect us, reduce the pressure?
I don't know if it would reduce. If you're talking about more courts, I don't know the answer.
The schedule would be just Jackson, Haywood, Swain. So just those three counties would be working on the schedule together. And then they would be naming two judges from the far western part of the district, which would be the 30B. And then the existing judges that's already in 30A would be the judges for this. So we wouldn't gain any judges immediately. But it would change the election cycles somewhat. So nobody loses. There's no current incumbent judge that would lose a position. Would they be gaining two positions? So that's all that I had. Commissioner Striblin, did you have anything else that you wanted to present?
No, sir, that's about all I have.
Okay. Mr. Jones, anything else?
This time.
Okay. Commissioner Deeds?
No, sir.
Mr. Wood?
No.
So you did say we had need for closed session
Personnel. Yes.
for personnel. We'll go ahead and ask for a motion to go into closed session for personnel, 143-318-11A6. Have a motion.
I move that we go into closed session for personnel.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Give them a chance to get us off the live stream.
Don, do you want me to do that?
Oh, yes, please.
Angie, I took out the paper.
Can I start the YouTube stream? You need to leave YouTube. I mean,
Try both to get a big.
I know. I'll get one of those big ones.
Oh,
Oh, thanks. Do you want me to pass these out?
Well, just
I don't care
be
to.
sure they get them.
Is that it?
Look at what's awaiting you.
Hey, bedtime reading.
Yeah, when you go on vacation, you get to read this.
That looks like it's about all I'm gonna have time to do.
I know a dying